So tonight, you're all going to bear witness to the crime that was committed in 2024. That's right, Philadelphia. The Fighting's Final has returned to air the grievances, to try the guilty, and to assess the criminal negligence that was the 2024 Philadelphia Phillies season. Welcome back to the Fighting's Final. All right, welcome back to the Fighting's Final 2024 Phillies season in review episode with your boy Matty B, joined by my main man Sal G and our main man Al. Big Al's the Fury back in the house here on the It's a Wrap Sports Network. Gentlemen, we are assembled here tonight to pick through the ashes that was the 2024 Phillies season, and I want to remind all the members of the dais assembled that the phrase, "that's baseball," will not be tolerated on this program tonight because that's not baseball for what happened to the 2024 Phillies. Sal, what's going on? Welcome.
What's going on, guys? I'm going to get ready for the holiday season, and to quote Costanza's dad, I forgot his first name, but I got problems with a lot of you people, and now you're going to hear about it.
The errands of grievances.
Errand of grievances.
All right. And then if this gentleman down below here, those of you might remember him. It's been a hot minute since I've seen him too. So let's welcome him back. Big Al, how you been? What's going on? And how was the witness relocation program?
Yeah. No, the move is going well. Still, as you know, when you move in, it doesn't happen for like 3 months, fully. But it's nice to stretch my feet and actually be part of a Philly sports conversation that's not me yelling at somebody across a Wawa parking lot. So
yes, it's always a good thing not to have to do that. Of course, you're noticing that there's two other members or three really contributing members of the Fighting's Final in 2024 that are not present. Big Mike, Pat Bernard, and Steve Fuentes for a 3-game set, but he did some games for us, so I gotta acknowledge all their contributions. Yeah, gentlemen, thank you for your help this year. I do appreciate it. We appreciate it. But assembled in front of you, let's face it, are the men who did the heavy lifting in 2024. All right, you're looking at 136 games of the Phillies season right here in front of you, post-game wise. Sal, you did 44. I did 54. Al, you did 38. And
do I get any credit for the ones that I go and cover?
No, man, no. You got to actually no. I don't.
8 hours of work, man. It's not like
you don't get that.
Absolutely come on, not. I have 2 hours before the game, 3 hours before the game, 2 hours after the game. I should get some credit.
No, I'll tell you what. Let's do what is the moral credit? Attaboy. That's a good job. No, it's got to be the heavy lifting and. Well, yeah. Hey, listen. You 38 games ain't nothing to shake a stick at. It ain't 54, but 38 is not nothing to shake a stick at.
I covered 12 games this season
in the press box, eating free food, sitting next to.
Free. I paid my $10.
Sitting next to Howard Eskin before he was banned, and Anthony Sanfilippo. I don't call that. Well, actually, that would be quite work for you as well. I would have a problem with that. But no, listen, guys. From the bottom of my heart, season 3 of the Fighting's Final. In the books, and once again, we have no World Series to talk about yet, but we got to go back and we got to get this thing wrapped and started fast. And Sal, I'm going to kick it off with you because I remember having this conversation with you back in March, Sal. It was imperative. I mean, imperative the Phillies get off to a fast start in 2024. Of course, they did. Oh, they did. We're not going to talk about what happened after that, but Sal, with that fast start, what do you think was it 41-28, I believe, through the months of March, April, and May? Just an amazing start to the season. 40-28. But prior to June 1st, they were 40-28. So on May 31st, they were 40-28. 40-18. Geez, 40-18. Anyway, Sal, what, in your opinion, was the reason for that fast start?
My opinion, I just think another year with Thompson, and I know there's Thompson haters, but I think players were getting the message. In particular, you had Kyle Schwarber, who really settled in the leadoff spot. You wonder if he's going to be batting leadoff now in 2025 going forward with whatever lineup constructions come to be. But I feel like it was Schwarber, the pitching staff. I mean, the pitching staff was, you had 4 guys. Actually, all 5 of your starters were like in the top 5, top 10 for ERA. Everybody was like under 2. So I think that contributed to your hot start. You had the bullpen that just was putting out scoreless inning after scoreless inning. I mean, I think that all that culminated into the hot start that you see. And unfortunately, they couldn't carry it over. And it's sad that you can't just time these hot stretches, because you want to get hot is the end of the year leading into the playoffs. And unfortunately, that didn't happen for the Phillies, because for the second half of the year, they played 500 ball pretty much the entire time.
Around there, yeah. All right, Al, I want to send it down to you. Some of the big stories of that first half, and Sal kind of covered it generally, but I'm going to take 3 of them. The performances of Ranger Suarez, the performances of Alec Boehm, and the performances of Trey Turner, which I think, honestly, were the 3 players that drove the Philly first half train. Would you not agree with that? And if there's somebody else you want to throw in there, but talk to me about how important those 3 performances were in the first half.
Well, I mean, there is other names in it, but like Ranger Suarez pitching like a Cy Young, when you already had, you had 2 other guys pitching like we know they can pitch, and then sometimes take it for granted. Even a little bit felt in the Cy Young snub, getting only second place for Zach Wheeler. That's a big reason. I mean, I think pitching is the big reason, which made batting a lot easier for guys. Yes, we didn't have that sluggish Trey Turner start that we saw in 2023. That was a big difference there. Alec Boehm, at that point was setting the world on fire and could have had 120 RBIs if he continued that all the way through the whole season. So I think you're now on the head there with those key factors there. But I mean, everybody was contributing, and we also said it was when one guy goes down, the other guys picked it back up. Mundo Sosa is a kind of an unsung hero at times, and like a lot of the other Phillies, kind of got cold towards the end of the season. But at the beginning of the season, I feel like you could have put Sal G up at the plate, and he would be knocking in dingers too. I mean, it's just like that team just had this wave about them that no matter what you did or who you tried, how you stopped them after the first week, they couldn't be stopped. And that's when you got that 40 and 18 start before you hit London. And yeah, that when you have pitching the way you have, but also the hitting, it's like you can't stop a team. And not to use the term, it's baseball, but that's not how.
No, we're not saying that, man.
No, but I'm just saying. But it's the sustainability of that was difficult. But it's that beginning of the season start was just a perfect storm of such. Even guys like, because you forget one guy who wasn't there was Nick Castellanos. But he was so bad, but everybody else was so good. You could put up with it almost.
Now, that's an interesting point. I want to send this up to Sal because you mentioned one of my next 2 players, and Nick Castellanos, an enigma wrapped around a riddle the size of a burning dumpster in the first half, just really struggled. And I guess you can say, to Rob Thompson's credit, he did not waver with Nick Castellanos. Nick Castellanos finished 2024 playing in 162 games. I'm not making that up. That was the number of games he played in, was 162. That's every single regular season game and every playoff game. But Sal, in hindsight, what do you attribute Nick? I mean, he was so awful in the first couple months of the season. He did get hot and he did become consistent, and at the end, he was one of the only players hitting at that time for the Phillies. But if you could do it all over again, would you have never taken Nick Castellanos out of the lineup? I mean, there was nights where I was banging my head against the wall because this guy was swinging at pitches up in the 130 level of Citizen Bank Park.
I mean, he never got taken out, right? I mean, he
no,
played
162. 162.
Right. Me, if I were the manager, I would have sat him down for a day or 2 days, a series. I would have said, get your head together, buddy. But credit to Nick. The one thing that you always heard about him doing was he was always taking that batting practice. He was always one of the first guys out there swinging away. Maybe one of the last guys, too. I mean, the second half of the season, you could argue that he was your most consistent hitter on the Phillies for the second half. I mean, he just was hitting balls all over the place. He was getting timely hits. I just think it was his dedication. I think Rob Thompson believing in him. I think the players believing in him and having his back. I think it led to that. And silly me and silly us for thinking, he just fell off the bottom of a cliff, because I was ready to ship him out. I was ready to trade him in for a bag of balls. And it turns out the guy did play to the back of his baseball card. He averaged everything out. So credit to him, credit to Thompson for sticking with him.
And that, of course, leads me to St. Bryce, the patron saint of Philadelphia, friggin' Pennsylvania, Bryce Harper. April and May, not solid months, but somehow, and maybe this is, I've had some soul searching and self-reflection, Al, and maybe this is my fault, but the guy won Player of the Month honors in April and May. All right. He did. I got to give him that. He was the NL Player of the Month in both those 2 months. But for some odd reason, every time it seemed like he came up in a clutch moment, in a clutch situation, and this was not just in April and May, but to me throughout the whole season, he just came up too small. Am I looking at Bryce Harper from the wrong side of the lens? Or do I need to be more gracious about Bryce Harper's overall ability? Because honestly, if I was Middleton, and I'm paying Bryce Harper to be Mr. Clutch, he was not Mr. Clutch in 2024.
No, I think it's expectations is the key factor for a lot of people. Just like I just mentioned before, you talked about Ranger Suarez pitching at a Cy Young level in the beginning of the season. You forget so was Zach Wheeler. So is Aaron Nola for the most part, all Cy Young type pitching. But why do you not talk about them is because you expect it of them. You expect it of Bryce Harper. And when you get it from him, it's like you expect it. When you don't get it from him, it makes you angrier than it probably would anybody else. Because you know what he's worth, and you know what he's costing you, and you know what he's capable of. So I think it's expectations that set that separate, that change that up.
Yeah, it was. But again, as I said, I would have traded in April NL Player of the Month awards, May NL Player of the Month awards, if he would have just hit the ball in the NLDS. I would have traded all that in for just some like 250, 280 batting average against the Mets. I would have definitely done that, but you can't. All right, gentlemen, I want to take a look now at some of the first half numbers. Not all of them, because unfortunately, I know you don't have, and neither do the people out there that have the same sort of passion that I do when it comes to stats. Folks, if you could see what I did every night for every single Phillies game, I went through the box score and tracked this stuff by hand all season long. And this is the third year I've done it.
Not even using Excel there, Matty B? Just all
No, I'm using Excel, but I don't have the math formulas in it. I do it by hand.
Nice.
Right. I showed him how to do some of the math formulas.
Yeah, but it's not imported in the major stuff. It's a mental exercise. It keeps me sane. But let's go through some of the first half numbers. Home runs, Phillies batted or hit, and now this is through 81 games. This is not through the All-Star break or anything like that. This is through 81 games, so it goes into June. 97 home runs the Phillies hit in the first half. They gave up 64 as a pitching staff. Sal, let's talk about that number right there. That's a number I can live with. The Phillies were hitting more home runs, considerably more home runs than they were giving up as a pitching staff, but they did not hit 100 home runs. They were less than 100 for the first half. A team that's predicated with power hitters. What was the power outing or the power shortage, you think, in the first half? Or was there a power shortage? Is 97 acceptable to you?
No, there was. Well, they ended up finishing with 198 home runs for the season, which was seventh in Major League Baseball. So that's not bad. Generally the most, when you always hear about power hitting teams, generally they always go over that 200 number. But if you remember in the beginning of the season, it's just the Phillies seemed to struggle with scoring runs, and it was the pitching that particularly carried them that first month and a half, I'd say. They weren't hitting home runs. I mean, they were making a lot of mental mistakes. It just seemed like they weren't disciplined. And I think a lot of that could have been the reason. Also, April and May, I hate to bring up the weather as an excuse, but it's still kind of cold in Philadelphia.
I'm going to stick you down the bottom with him, all right? Because I'm not doing this, man. I'm not doing this. I'm not going to hear about the weather or living in London for a weekend. I'm not listening to that nonsense tonight.
No, but I know what he's saying. If you do remember, I remember the first 2 weeks of the year, it was cold and rainy and windy, like really like unseasonably wet. It's been unseasonably dry here lately up until the last couple of days. So yeah, there was a little bit of that factor. It was an unusually cold spring for Philadelphia. So I see what you're saying there, Sal, and I agree with you to a point, but I think it's the old saying is if you live by the long ball, you can die by the long ball in some ways, and that's kind of the give and take when you have a team made of power hitters, because it's been something that we've been saying on this program since 2022 when we lost in the World Series, is that we were missing guys who can use the term pray and spray, but hit the ball and just spray it around the field. And then that's why I think the ultimate demise, which I'm sure we're going to be getting into very shortly, is what we saw from this team.
Yeah, no, and it obviously when you go back to 2023, that whole live by the home run, die by the home run is kind of the reason we lost to the Diamondbacks that were out there in game 6 and 7 trying to win the game with the swing of the bat. I 100% agree. I honestly think I like I'm not necessarily hung up on the 97. What I'm focusing on this stat is the 64 home runs that the pitching staff gave up in the first half. I think that's an amazing number, and that's attributed to the 5 pitchers, as you mentioned, pitching really well. And I don't know if you mentioned Spencer Turnbull that was thrown into that mix there, because don't forget Taijuan Walker. We all know how that worked out, but he couldn't start the season. It was Turnbull who was that number 5. Yeah, well, he's still here, by the way, Walker. But yeah, we'll get to that. Turnbull until. A core injury, a labium. I don't know what happened to him, but he disappeared in May and was never heard from again.
Unfortunately, that's Turnbull's MO, like his injury history. Like he just can't stay healthy. Like that's why he never was able to put like a solid career together, because he's always can't help the club from the tub situation. And they kind of knew that going in there, because remember, Taijuan Walker was injured before he got his chance. The injury gave Spencer Turnbull the chance, and then they're like, well, let's just run this out and not have to run Taijuan Walker out there. But then Spencer Turnbull's injury then had to run Taijuan Walker out there, and we kind of know how that played out.
Yeah, and that's when the number 5 two-step shuffle began, and we really never figured it out the rest of the year. But so 64 is what I'm looking at, and I think it's a great number. The next stat I want to pay some attention to is the strikeouts. 743 strikeouts that Phillies pitching dealt to their opponent. That's over 9 a game that Phillies pitchers were striking opposition batters out at. And for the team, only 670 a game, which is around 8 a game. So there was a strikeout difference between the opposition and the Phillies. Quite a nice number, seeing how in 23 they ended the season striking out close to 9 times a game. Al, you alluded to it a little bit, and I want you to expand upon it, but I did see some plate approach differences from this team based on what I saw coming out of 23.
No, definitely a lot of guys, they knew what they were doing. Nick Castellanos, you even said it, he's a guy who will swing at a ball 18 feet above his head. But when he was hitting well, he was the most disciplined at the plate than anybody else I've seen in a long time. I mean, that's what bad habits are in baseball. And that's why guys get in ruts. But yes, Trey Turner's plate discipline was in it. When Bryce Harper was struggling, Trey Turner went to him and said, look, I looked at your video from the years before in the 22 playoff run, and you're holding the bat a little differently. Your shoulders are dipped a little differently. And, that adjustment made a difference. Like, yes, they had it. Listen, they came out of here. We noticed the one thing we said when it came out of 2023 is they got to try to just make contact with the ball. And they did that. And that's why one of the contributing factors of why this team was doing so well. We, hit the ball, the long ball will come. We all know that. But, that I think that the plate discipline was definitely there. And kind of to go back with Sal was saying earlier, like, I know there's a lot of Rob Thompson haters, and he's kind of an enigma a little bit. Like, Nick Sirianni with the Eagles, like, we all wanted him driven out of the town in 4 games, and I was one of them at one point. I was just fed up with him, but whatever reason, whatever his message works. And the same thing with Rob Thompson. Sometimes his message is not conventional, and but whatever it is, it's working. And that does play a factor in it. Like whatever his message is getting across these guys. These guys do want to play for him. But again, like, I'm not sold on Rob Thompson, but I'm also like not ready to run him out of town. Like he said, that's what makes him such an enigma. And whatever his plan was, it was executed appropriately, at least for the first half of the season until, they hopped across the pond.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we still had about 4.5 months of baseball left to play at that point, but we'll get to that here in a minute. Sal, the other numbers I want to talk about is the numbers that I sleep and dream about, and the stat that I will have engraved onto my tombstone. That is the RISP. The runners in scoring position batting average for the Phillies in the first half was a respectable 277, 194 for 700. I will take that, seeing how they finished 2023 with a 224 batting average overall in that season. So once again, plate approach that might be a little bit different. Getting consistent contributions from Bohm and from Turner and from, I guess, Harper, because, again, I didn't see it, but he was doing it. 277. If you're not batting 270 or above in Major League Baseball with runners in scoring position, you're really not a Major League Baseball team, Sal. Were you as pleasant to see risk that high as I was?
You know what? I think you're under you're shortening it a little bit there. I have Texas Rangers were at 271 with runners in scoring position, and that was number 3 in baseball. So the Phillies are at number 6 overall with 267 average. So
that was for the end of the season, right? That was for the end of the season. I'm talking first half only.
Right, first half only.
Yeah, so 277 was the first half.
Listen, 277 is way above the.
No, that's really good.
Average. It's way above.
Yeah. Hey, Pat, what's going on? No, that's a really good batting average. Absolutely. And Al, we've talked about RISP up and down till my eyes bled. And I don't know, Al. Maybe I take RISP too seriously. But to me, it's an indicator of what's happening with runners in scoring position. This team is notorious for not being able to drive runners in. And in the second half, they didn't drive runners in, and definitely it hurt. So, Al, again, would you want to talk me off the bridge about RISP, or is it a valid number to pay attention to?
No, Matty, this is the one where we will go down with that ship together. 2 major stats that are overlooked, and to me, the most what is the ingredients to make a championship team is runners in scoring position and on base percentage.
Yeah,
because you can't have one without the other. Because you can have a good runners in scoring position, but if you only get 2 guys on base every game, then it doesn't mean anything. But if you have on base percentage and runners in scoring position, I don't give a crap about anything else. I mean, kind of the Kyle Schwarber anomaly. Here's a guy who can knock in crazy RBIs and hit home runs and lead off, but have barely above 200 batting average. So that goes to show you, batting average isn't always 100% the most important. But these are stats that can be moved around and massaged and make them look better or worse than they actually are. Runners in scoring position and on base percentage is the most important, and in my eyes. And listen, that is your championship. That's the ingredients of a championship. I mean, look at the Dodgers. Look at the Yankees. Look at the Mets when they got hot. Look at the runners in scoring position during those hot streaks. That's the number that's going to jump out to you the most. Because if you can't capitalize at those moments, I don't care what kind of power hitting numbers you have. I don't care. It's necessity. You have to have them. You can't live without them.
You're absolutely right. And for everyone who's just tuning in right now, you're watching the 2024 Phillies season in review show on the Fighting's Final here on the It's a Wrap Sports Network. Please give us a like, a follow, a subscribe down there on our YouTube channel or any of our other social media platforms. It's down there on the scroll area, or if you're watching this on YouTube, it's down in the description. So please, we need your help. We are grassroots organizations climbing up the ladder of success, and God damn it, we're going to get there. We're all going to die trying. So let's continue on with this greatness, because as they always say, all good things must come to an end, and it seemed like that end came in June. And let's leave it all on the table, gentlemen, because what I heard from members of the assembled Philadelphia sports media throughout the summer months when things were going down and the town was burning down around everybody, and we were trying to put the fire out with an eyeglass dropper thing, and I kept hearing, "Don't worry about it. Nothing to see here. That's baseball, everybody. No, it's okay. They go ebb and flow and woo." It wasn't, and things went off a rail, a cliff, all of that nonsense. And Al, I'm going to give you an opportunity right now to expunge the record. As I said, this is a trial. This is a criminal court trial right now. I am giving you that opportunity to jump off the Homer wagon and tell the assembled fan base that's watching us down here, me and Sal, it's not baseball. The Phillies are not a good team. Go.
Well, I would say the Phillies are not a good team, but they weren't a good team at that time. No, I'll agree with you on that. And you're going to see when I'm sure as we talk about a little further, you're going to see some major moves, even in players that you probably don't expect to be moved on from or whatever, which, like I said, we'll talk about that in a moment. But yes, because this team built such a foundation in the beginning, it was easy to just go 500. We even said that. I think, Matty B, you were on the record saying, hey, they can go 500 for the rest of the year. We're still going to be almost a 100-win team.
Yeah, I said that a few times too, I'm sure.
Yeah. And listen, the parity of baseball allowed that.
Man, here we go.
No, I'm just saying, but listen, I'm being honest, there was no 100-win teams here. But that unfortunately, this team, what we fell into was everything we made fun of the Braves for. You know what I mean? That's what happened with us. I believe in karma or don't believe in karma, whatever you want to do. Hi, Fred. Yes. I'm wearing these glasses. Get it. Michael Barkan wishes. Okay. He's this pretty. But I'm saying, for everything we used to make fun of the Braves for in 2022 and 2023, I mean, we lived it, We were the hottest team. We were the hottest team in baseball. We were running and gunning. We were in first place for 99% of the season. And then what happened? We got our first round bye. We got in the NLDS, and we the bed. Not even just not in 7 games, fighting. We the bed. That's what happened. Yeah, and I'm not going to sit here and deny that. I was was I wrong in what I said? Not really. I said, listen, this team can hold on and still win this division and still go in the playoffs. And, and they team did get a little hot a little bit towards the end. But once they hit those playoffs, we looked like the 2022 and 2023 Braves, and all that talk that people said, don't worry. That was what annoyed me. People kept saying, don't worry about the playoffs. I'm like, I want to worry about this team getting hot at the right time, because that's where the worry came in, and rightfully so.
Listen, you're right. I might have said we could go 500 the rest of the way. I don't think I was prepared emotionally for what that would have been like. And of course, now that I've been through it, I don't think I'm going to say that again. It was really, really frustrating. And Sal, the question I want to ask directed at you is this. With that 500 thing being said, one of the biggest things and you were doing a lot of shows during this time. You were watching a lot of shows. You were on the PM and the AM thing. And that was the worst culprits of that nonsense about the whole don't look here, everything is fine crap. But here's the thing, Sal. Did we spend too much time as a fan base focusing on the problems of the other teams of Major League Baseball, and not enough time looking inward at the problems of the Phillies?
I thought we were pretty. We had a microscope on the Phillies. I mean, we were bashing Nick Castellanos. We were talking about the bullpen and near the stretch run of the regular season. How if they don't get their act together, we're going to be in trouble. And that held true. That the bullpen didn't do anything. Guys weren't getting timely hits when we needed them. We just like I said, Nick Castellanos was your most consistent hitter. He was the only guy hitting in the playoffs. I thought we had a beat on it. I mean, maybe some other guys were wearing the red colored glasses. We're going to call out Al, but he's got yellow.
They're more yellow tinted than
But I don't know. I thought, we kept throwing it out. Yeah, if they play 500, and then it turned out they did play 500, and then we're like, shit, shoot, not good. They're not hot. I don't know. I thought we were on. I don't know. I just felt like Here's one thing I'm going to just say: the Phillies were the only one of the 4 bye teams to lose in the division series. So I don't want to hear about the
that's over.
The
and the Dodgers won the World Series, so that's over. That is no longer a thing, right? Sal, we're going to try to dissect it a little bit, but I'm trying to overview it because I think we can all sit here and say that the problems began in London when they went over to London. They dropped 2 out of 3 to the Mets, and things just didn't seem right after that. And this is where a star was born right after this trip, because I remember I was working up at Cooperstown, New York, umpiring, and I do that all summer long. And I'm coming home from working one night, and because my wife, girlfriend, whatever she is, she lives about an hour away, and I'm going home, and I'm listening to Al running the Titans final. And this Sal, I should have, I should go back and look for this clip, but I didn't. But I did what I could best with it. I heard, and I'm not quoting, because I don't remember exactly, but they are tired. They haven't slept in their own beds in about a week. The time zone difference is the problem. They're playing in London. It's not the same. Maybe the air quality is a little off from America. I heard it all, and from that was born the Excuse Emporium, because that is what I started to hear on a daily basis. Al, I don't mean to call you out on it, man, but I'm just going to let you know, you know the origins of all this.
Don't lie. Don't lie to people. Don't sit here and pretend you didn't invite me on just to make sure my stones were broken. But listen, I'm not going to back up for it. You were partially right. You said you did, you embellished a little bit. We'll give you a little bit of the embellishment of some of the things I said. But don't see, there's the fact with sports in general, and guys like you, Matty B, who think everything's a machine and everything should be coming out the same exact way, that these aren't human beings. Like, wrong. They're wrong. So yes, I was part of their slumping at that time, in my eyes, part of being tired. Yeah, absolutely. And look at guys who came out with arm fatigue. Ranger Suarez, that man looked like he couldn't get the arm fatigue set in. Was he just overdoing it that whole time and leading up to the London series? And then that's when everything came about. They went on. They came back. I believe when they went to Boston, then they went to Baltimore, and then they came home after all that. So yeah, you spent about 2 weeks, and part of those 2 weeks, in part of this whole media storm and everything, there is a human factor that has to be thought about into this. So yes, no, I get what you're saying. It's not the whole problem, but at that moment in time, when I'm doing that post-game show, yeah, part of it is this team is tired. But to sit here and tell me they're a bad team, they are not a bad team. They are constructive. A lot of good teams. Were they working as a team at all times? No. Were they a little bit full of themselves? And that's the problem, is like, it was kind of a joke between us. I don't know if we said this on air or not early on in the season when this, when the team was hot, especially like April and May. We're like, it is a difference coming out like this, but does the Philly teams just do better when they are the underdogs? Does the Philly teams do better when they have to struggle a little bit and earn their spot? Did they use the term complacent? Was it a thing of being complacent at the time that made this team feel that way? And I got to put a little stock into that.
I'm going to actually, that's a good point.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I was going to say, maybe they just played above their heads for 2 months, and then they just came back to earth, because we knew, was Ranger going to be Cy Young caliber the entire season? No, probably not. He's going to come back down to earth. Was Turnbull going to be able to give you what he gave coming off a Tommy John surgery? No, he ended up breaking down. And then you had, the other players got hurt. You got Turner got hurt. Harper got hurt. Schwarber got hurt. Everybody had a hamstring thing going on. At the bullpen that was untouchable ended up becoming extremely hittable, and I think all those things just
that's something. Actually, I have a question for you guys, and I know we'll get it closer to when we get to the actual playoffs conversation. There were some guys who fell off straight off a cliff, not just gradually got bad or gradually started struggling, got in their head. There is some guys that it just didn't make sense to me of what happened, and I know we'll talk about it, but that's big thing there.
Yeah, it is, and I'm gonna repackage what you asked earlier, Al, a different way later in the show, because I think you put up a very good, valid point. Now, I do want to look at some of the factors that I think that caused some of the second half problems. Trey Turner, and I'm going to gravitate towards him, and really not to his fault because he got hurt. Missed those 6 weeks there in between, in that June to July timeframe. Never came back. Never. I think we had a show together, and I said I thought Trey Turner up to that point was an MVP candidate the way he was playing in the first half of the season.
100%.
When he got injured, he just never recaptured that. Alec Bohm, we talked about Alec Bohm going off to the home run derby, which I still have not been able to figure out why he was invited to the home run derby in 2024. And we talked about the swing curse.
The only one that said yes.
Yeah, maybe he is. The swing curse of potentially going to the home run derby and his swing getting affected. I don't know if that's what happened to him, but something happened to him because he fell off the face of the earth in the second half. And then my main culprit, and I want to explore this with you, and I want to hear about it. The main culprit for me is the manager, Rob Thompson, and his inability to move off of any kind of try something new. And I want to factor, and I want to point out what I mean. I got the whole lineup thing. I've gone to bed, and I've put that to rest. I know that's never changing. But Bryson Stott, 5th in any Major League Baseball lineup is criminal. It's criminal. It's negligent. Bryson Stott, even if he's on and he's red hot, is not a number 5 hitter in Major League Baseball. You're never going to sell me on that, just like you're never going to sell me on Kyle Schwarber as a leadoff hitter. I don't care about that he is not a leadoff hitter. Also, when it comes to Rob Thompson, I do want to talk about the bullpen. Sal, we talked about it back in March. The bullpen by committee was going to doom this team. I said it, and it ended up, I think, coming true. So I want to go to Al first with Alec Bohm and his second half struggles. Do you take credit with the home run? Is it the derby? I mean, what happened to Alec Bohm offensively? And maybe you want to talk defensively too.
I have a couple of my questions are going to be I have theories. I don't know. Like, here's the thing is, like, and I know part of the Phillies are going to feel like they make drastic changes. They can't just keep running it back if they're going to make, that next step. But Alec Bohm, his biggest problem is his immaturity. But it's not just that. He lets you never in sports let the other guy know you're sweating. Like, take Ranger, for instance. Ranger struggled, right? But Ranger didn't freak out. Ranger, I could see he was upset with himself when he didn't throw a great inning or he let up a long ball that gave up the tied a game or gave up the lead or whatever like that. But when you're flipping your hat down and you're bouncing your helmet off there and you're throwing your bat down like a little petulant child, that is you letting the other team know you're sweating. You've doomed yourself. And then that goes all the way down to Little League. I coach football. I just got done this week coaching football, and I got guys like that who are throwing little temper tantrums, blaming everybody else around them. And when you're doing that at a major league level, no, you don't do that. And that's just, there is a problem. Like, why would a team, now, Alec Bohm's not super young, but he's still, 28 years old? I mean, if you're ready to move on from him, which it sounds like the Phillies are, there's got to be a lot of other issues going on. And the guy, like, I'm looking at the numbers now with him. Like, I had to go back and look at him because it just didn't make sense to me. But Alec Bohm, I mean, if you look at his numbers in a whole, he was slashed to 280, 332, 448, 15 home runs, almost 100 RBIs.
Yeah.
But then came up super small in the end of the season, and then even smaller in the postseason, even though it was a small sample. It doesn't make sense. Like, listen, you see guys like the reverse in Castellanos. Here's the guy, he got benched in game 3 or whatever it was. But here's a guy like, who got better as time went on. He got out of it, but like, he gets himself into it. Like, he digs himself deeper. So I don't know what the problem is, but if you're ready to move on from a guy who is defensively okay, like, I mean, I don't think he's ever going to be a Gold Glover, but his bat is good and he's affordable. And right now, when you're talking about, which I'm sure is a conversation we're going to have, bringing in another big ticket item, you're going to want guys like that. But if you're ready to move on from him, there's got to be a lot bigger problems here, which is the hardest thing for them, is the hardest thing to fix. And I think maybe if you want to say the Phillies are learning from their mistakes, they're learning from their mistakes and not trying to, do what the Sixers have done and just keep breeding these petulant children and giving them whatever they want.
Yeah, the Phillies were 55-49 from June 2nd to the end of the season. So not quite 500, but definitely hovering in that area. Sal, I'm going to give you the sailfish, the Moby Dick, the Big Daddy, Rob Thompson. I really put a lot of this collapse. Let's call it a collapse. I think it is. It's okay to call it a collapse. I put a lot on Rob Thompson's shoulders. Now, I mentioned a few of the examples. I might have missed a couple. You can talk about those. You can add your own. But what is your take on Rob Thompson's performance, especially in the second half of the season?
Yeah, you know me. I'm a Rob Thompson guy, and I know some of you guys aren't. I know Matty B, you're probably not. But when the Phillies were struggling offensively this year, they had an opportunity to make a change, and that would be to boot Kevin Long, who is supposed to be your guru hitting coach, and these guys aren't hitting. That should have been who was go. Now, maybe Thompson had something to do with it. Maybe they wanted to fire him. I just have a feeling going into next season, they're bringing everybody back again. Thompson and crew got extended for 2 years. If they struggle offensively again, you got to think Kevin Long is going to be your scapegoat. He's going to be your first one gone. And then just to go back to Alec Boehm, I think the Phillies are going to trade him, not just because they're worried about what's up here, but I think they know that moving Boehm is easier to do than, say, moving the Nick Castellanos or somebody else who has a larger contract. Alec Boehm is controllable. You can shake the team up by moving him. You can't go in the next season with the same lineup again. I mean, all they did offensively was bring in Whit Merrifield. I don't know that that's Thompson's fault. I mean, Thompson can only work with what he has. Unfortunately, if he has 8 guys that swing like Nick Castellanos in the lineup, I don't know what he's supposed to do. So I think they need to shake things up. They need to get somebody that can make contact. They need to get a right-handed outfielder. It's tough for me to put it on Thompson. I mean, Thompson has his flaws. He's not a perfect manager. Yes, there are times where he leaves guys in too long. I mean, I felt like what he did, though, honestly, this season, a lot of the starting pitchers on the team, they were leading. I think the Philadelphia Phillies, if they're not the top, they're close to being one of the most, innings pitched teams. I think their starters have thrown the most innings out of probably anybody. And, I think what Thompson was doing was the right thing. Stretch guys out now, and then near the end of the season, you can pull back a little bit, as opposed to have them only go 5, 6, and then late in the season expect them to go 7, 8, where they can't. So I don't know. I don't think I could fault Thompson on this. I have a tough time blaming Thompson.
I'm going to back him up a little bit on this. Sorry, but I have to, because I don't understand the Rob Thompson hate. I can understand sometimes his frustrating moves that he makes, but the one thing the Phillies did this whole year, and I don't know if this was him or if this was the overall organizational thought process of, they were trying, they pretty much had themselves in the playoffs no matter what, and they were controlling that the whole year long. Like the way they were setting things up, the way they were handling at bats to pitching, and month after month, they talked about being prepared for the playoffs in May and in June and July. Like, I just don't get that. So I don't know if that was him or not, but if it was him, that will frustrate me. But again, here's a team in 2022. It looked like we were about to go to the dark ages with a really high payroll with nothing to come out of it. And since he's taken helm, this team is a winning team, has been in the playoffs 3 years in a row, once in the World Series. And I know, Matty B, I agree with you. If you haven't won it all, you haven't won anything. I agree with that. But you can't deny the success that there has been, just not the total success. So I don't get the hate for Rob Thompson. Any manager, Bruce Bochy could be here, could be our manager, who I would love, don't get me wrong. But I'm sure he would do things that would frustrate me and have sports radio in Philadelphia a lit going crazy about some things to do. It's just, we have anybody here is going to be under a microscope because you're not watching the Rangers play as much as you're watching the Phillies. So yeah, you're not going to scrutinize as much. But I just don't get the Rob Thompson extreme hate. I don't get it.
Enter me. Okay.
Yeah.
Here, I do want to ask this.
I just wanted to make one more point too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sal.
So I was going to say, so the one thing I was calling Thompson like a wizard because he was making some moves, and there were head scratchers for me too. I was wondering what the hell is he doing? And every time he would bench one guy, put another guy in, whether it's Weston Wilson, Cal Stevenson, all these guys would end up coming through. They'd be clutch, they'd be producing. It just seems like no matter what Thompson would do, he couldn't go wrong. So I was just seeing that a lot this season. And even when I was doubting his moves, he would always end up throwing it back at me and being like, I'm right, you're wrong. That's why I'm a manager and you're not. So that's the way I was looking at it.
Let me ask you this question because we just talked about Nick Castellanos, right? He 162 games, Nick Castellanos didn't sit one game. And Matty, I was with you, and I still think it would probably have been the right move a little bit. But he stuck by him, and he became the reason that we even made the playoffs.
Yeah,
because if it wasn't for Nick Castellanos, this team could have had a much bigger plunge than it did.
No, and I'm not. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And sometimes his loyalty is frustrating and stubbornness, and it doesn't work. And sometimes it does work. But I do want to allude to a few certain stats. We talked about stats in the first half. Let's talk about those same numbers, but this time in the second half. Let's go with the home runs in the second half. Phillies hit 98 home runs, which is more than they hit in the first half, but the pitching staff gave up 118, which is considerably more than 64 from the first half. Let's take a look at that and let's try to examine that. 118 home runs versus 64. Al, we mentioned some of the problems with Ranger Suarez. We lost Spencer Turnbull down the bottom of the rotation. Ty Walker wasn't working. We were hurting in Tyler Phillips. We were hurting in Colby Allard. We were hurting in, I don't even know who the hell else was going in there. I think you contribute some of that to that too, but why do you think such the disparity between 64 home runs in the first half and 118 in the second half?
Well, you just said it. It's the carousel. I mean, some games there was guys who gave up 5-6 home runs. I mean, Ranger after London, there was plenty of games that when he did pitch, he gave up 4 or 5 home runs. Taijuan Walker probably took half of those 118 home runs. I mean, like that's the thing is that if you take out one guy, you can see the disparity drop. And not to just be funny, but it's true. Like you have to understand, like it's in a whole. Like if you're looking at just Aaron Nola, yeah,
Aaron Nola, the other.
Yeah, Nola gave up 38 home runs this year.
Yeah, I mean, and Aaron Nola is going to do that. I mean, Aaron Nola, if he gives up 3 runs, usually it's going to be 2 of them are going to be by the long ball.
Yeah.
Even Zach Wheeler, when he has a couple down games or when he doesn't have his greatest games, he gives up the long ball. That's the MO of this team. But overall, you can't complain about that. But you can complain. I mean, go back to the Athletics series right before the All-Star break. I mean, how many home runs did the A's have against the Phillies before? I don't know if they were just like, we're in All-Star mode already. We're in vacation mode already. We're just going to start throwing the ball down the chute and let whatever happen.
Didn't they hit 8 in the final game of that Sunday going into the All-Star break? They hit 8 home runs.
Yeah. Yeah, remember we all wanted Miller, and Miller was just like he was put on a show for Philadelphia.
Yeah, it was like the home run derby was starting up on Sunday. Now I agree, things went sideways, and then the other numbers I want to talk about is the RISP, 166 for 650 in the second half, 255 batting average, down over 20 points from the first half. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what went wrong. Now, is this Sal lineup construction issues? Was it players all going into the tanker at the same time? Was it a combination of both? Again, I said this at the start of this rant. Bryson Stott batting 5th in anyone's lineup in the major league level is criminal. He's not a number 5. And, of course, the Kyle Schwarber leading off, which I will never let that die. And hopefully it's dead now and we can move on because we're going to get into what the Phillies might look like in 25 in a minute. But Sal, over 20-point drop with runners in scoring position and batting average. What are you pulling that from?
Yeah, I mean, it's lineup construction. It is a little bit of both. It's lineup construction, and it seems like when it's like everybody goes cold at the same time. And I don't know what it is, if it's an approach thing, if it's a confidence thing. You know, some guys, they're expressive, right? We talk about Alec Boehm. He slams his helmet. You know, Bryce Harper, when he's in a funk, you can see it on his face. Guys like Kyle Schwarber, though, you know, Kyle Schwarber's my favorite player on the team. There's a reason for that. I call him the leader because even when he's doing bad, you know, most of the time his face is always just like, you know, he doesn't show it. He's pretty good with that. I know he likes to talk to the umps and things like that, but lineup construction. You got a lot of Nick Castellanos. You got a lot of free swingers. You don't have guys that seems to take a lot of pitches. You don't have guys that just put the bat on the ball to try and get, an opposite field hit. Everybody's trying to hit 3-run home runs with nobody on base. That doesn't work. And like you said, Bryson Stott in the 5-hole. Now, there were times when Stott was in the 5-hole while I believe he was playing hot, and maybe that's why Thompson had him there. He might have been playing well because, again, like there's those times where Thompson does these things, and I'm like, what the hell is he doing? And then the guy ends up having like a 4-hit day or hits 2 home runs. But it just seems that when one guy fails, when the heart of your lineup fails, everybody fails, and there just isn't guys picking each other up. And it does seem like this entire lineup goes cold. And that's why I think they have to make some changes coming into this season. Otherwise, you're looking at being bounced from the first round or maybe not even making the playoffs again, because if you look at it over the past 3 years, you had a World Series berth. Then it was NLCS, you lost. And then you lost in the division series. Well, now it looks like you probably won't even make the playoffs. Like, I don't know. If you can't trot the same crap out there, they got to make changes. I think it's lineup construction, and guys just don't know how to move guys along the old school way.
Al, with all that being said, Al, the Phillies still managed 95 wins, and they managed to win the NL East for the first time since 2011. But, like you talked about a little bit earlier, if you guys could do it all over again, coming into 2025, and I'm going to start with you first, Al, would you rather have the Phillies get off to a slow start and then get hot like they typically do in June and July? Or were you okay with getting off to that torrid hot start and just holding on for dear life down the stretch?
I mean, at the time I was, but I mean, it's you have to go by the sample size that we have, and that sample size is 2022, 2023, and now 2024. Well, the 2 years that we had the most success, we got once to the World Series and once real close to it. Obviously, the slow start. I mean, maybe I have the heart made for baseball because I was probably the most calm guy in 2022, even in 2023 when they came off there. I remember talking you off a ledge a few times, Matty B. But I guess I would have to go with that. I mean, just the sample size indicates that.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and Sal, I'm going to give it to you, but I'm going to package it a little bit differently because you said it earlier too. Could Rob Thompson survive a slow start to the 2025 season? Because I think he might be starting the season out on the hot seat.
Yeah, well, I think they're going to bounce Kevin Long first. I think if the hitting stinks, Long's gone, and then they're going to see what happens then. I mean, if the Phillies don't even make the playoffs, I don't know how you can even keep Thompson for the following year. But I don't know how. They got to do something, and it's just you'd rather get off to a hot start. I mean, I know if we could plan it and say, well, we'll just get hot as hell in September into the playoffs and everything will be fine. Unfortunately, it doesn't work out that way. And I don't want to say it, but that's baseball. But no, you want to get hot. I'd rather be the team at the top of the mountain looking down at everyone than me climbing, being like a barrel of crabs, climbing over each other, trying to get to the top. I'd rather be at the top and looking down. I think it's better to be that way. Otherwise, you're putting bricks every night.
If you look at the New York Mets, and I hate to use them as an example, they kind of mirror the 2022 Phillies, the way their season kind of went.
And we talked about this on a joint game. I said that's what scared me about them.
Yeah, and they got really hot. And let's get into the playoffs, Al. So we got the first round bye. We survived all that. Got the first round bye. Got the NL East. And then we kind of, we're talking about the 5 days off and what's it going to be. Is this team not going to be able to do that? Well, they came out and really, Al, here's the thing. I'm not necessarily mad if they lost the series to the Mets. I am sort of pissed off on the manner of how they lost it. They didn't show up, except for that one game. Was it game 2 where they battled back? Amazing game, by the way. But other than that, I could have been out there for the Phillies. That's how they were uninterested in this series, Al. That to me is more of a problem than them losing, Al. Would you agree or disagree to that?
1,000,000%. Yeah, I mean that is definitely a disappointing factor. But I mean, again, is it the complacency? Is that what it is? Were they doing the same thing us fans were doing? us media members were doing at the time. Like, well, we know how this goes, guys. They're built for the playoffs is a term that I think we also should ban. But they're built for the playoffs, and once they get to the playoffs, everything's going to change. And even that one game where they battled back, we all kind of felt like, okay, here they go. Yep. They were kind of dangling the carrot, let the Mets feel special. Now we're going to just pounce on them. I mean, even in the September series against the Mets, the Phillies handled their business against them. They look like, but we go back to it. The Mets walloped us in 2022. The Braves walloped us in 2022 and 2023. And when it came down time to, nut up or shut up, we put them down. I mean, we got a taste of our own medicine. And again, it's a very odd situation. And I know we're banned from using it, but is that baseball, Matty B? Is that the question that we have
losing
to
baseball
answer?
Is what it is.
Well, I'm just saying, like, you said you're not upset that they lost the series. I am upset they lost the series, but yes, the fashion in which they lost the series makes it even more stomach churning to the people, the Mets, because no fans were worse than Mets fans in my eyes. I put them up there. It's kind of neck and neck with Dallas fans in my eyes. But And now I know we're going to talk about it because the Juan Soto lottery is going to be a conversation we're going to have, and you're going to be battling between two juggernaut wallets, and that would be the Mets and the Yankees.
Yeah, and let's fast forward a little bit. I do want to mention the postseason award, the off-season awards for Major League Baseball. The award season is over. They're all done. Phillies took home very limited hardware. Bryce Harper got the Silver Slugger for first base in the National League. Zach Wheeler was a member of the first team member of the All MLB team, and Harper was a member of the second All MLB team. I believe Wheeler also came in third, Cy Young voting, whatever. But Sal, I'm not a big fan of the awards process. I don't necessarily think that paints a picture, but I mean, the way we were dancing in the streets in June, I said this on my show. They probably should have given out these awards back then because we probably would have had a better showing. But the fact that Harper and Wheeler were the only two identified and recognized by Major League Baseball for having stellar seasons, does that tarnish a 95-win season for you?
It doesn't for me. I mean, Stott could have won a Gold Glove. I was kind of disappointed
but he didn't
that
win. That's my point.
I mean, he was great at second base, and does it tarnish? No, they're still just personal awards. I mean, I think if you were to ask any player, they would give up winning any type of MVP award, Cy Young award, if they had a chance to win a World Series. So I don't think it tarnishes the season at all.
Okay, and
I think the season tarnished the season. I think the playoffs tarnished the season. It feels too much. It feels too much 2010 for me. Yeah. For my case. Yeah. This is what this season feels like. So for you young guys out there, I know I'm the youngest on this dais, which is pretty scary with the gray and the beard. And even I wear my hat because the gray and the hair is showing here too. You know what I mean? Like I have to show it here, but for you young guys, for you young guys, I mean, we had the success in 2007, which led, of course, to the major overall success in 2008. 2009 was one of our better years. I mean, and we came real close to being back-to-back World Series champions. But then 2010, 2011, great regular seasons in the postseason.
Yeah, you're right, but you're right. Maybe I'm trying to grasp onto something here, and the awards were my last chance, and that didn't work out. So let's rev up the hot stove because this is actually, by the way, for those of you who keep a track at home, 82 days till pitchers and catchers report to Clearwater. So mark that on your calendar, February 12th. By the way, so here we go. Let's talk about some of the main issues or the main upgrades. We talked about it all show long. The Phillies cannot, in good conscience, bring out the same team. We can't run it back. They got to make some changes. Let's go with the obvious one. Alec Bohm, reports are that he has essentially been traded. It's just a matter of who they're going to trade him to. That's where a lot of the insiders are saying. I've heard him going to Kansas City. I've heard him going a couple other places. But So it leaves a hole at third base. I want to send it down to Al with the third base situation. I personally think third base is Aiden Miller's position in a couple of years, and I don't want to necessarily break the bank on Bregman to bring a third baseman in here where we could find a Gio Urshela out there for about a 2-year contract to kind of hold down the position until Aiden Miller's ready in a couple of years. Al, where do you come out on an upgrade in third base, or are you? I don't think you are, but are you still in on Alec Bohm?
Yeah, the Bregman thing, first part, Scott Boras. So that means you're going to be raked over the coals. Like, let's just call it for what it is. 6-7 years. He's 30 years old. He's a couple years older than Bohm.
Steve.
He also struggled coming out of the gate, but the difference with him is postseason numbers. He does not, and of course the attitude. The thing you have to worry about with Bohm also is he's 28. So you're at the prime right now. That means you're going to be entering the back end of your prime. So that means it's not going to get any better in my eyes. I mean, he could have a better batting season, but his defensive struggles, and when he struggles mentally, it goes across the board. So it's not just like he'll make it up in the field where he can, if he's struggling at the plate or vice versa. He struggles across the board. He wakes up in frustration when he's doing bad. I would love to have Bregman if I thought Bregman was a 3-4 year guy, tops. You know what I mean? But for the cost of what's going to cost, you're going to be paying what, 25, 27 million a year for 7 years for Bregman. No, I can't consciously swallow that pill. My question is if this team is in the Juan Soto category and they're going to be trading him, does that mean guys like maybe Aiden Miller, if they think he's ready, comes up a little soon? I don't know if this year.
No, I don't think he's ready this year.
But maybe Justin Crawford.
Yeah, and we're going to get to him. I definitely want to talk about Crawford, that.
You move him up. Maybe the Phillies are going to change their mentality more than just we need to mix it up and get some guys out of here. Guy we talked about, Nick Castellanos, the guy you also got to throw out there. I mean, his name has been thrown out a lot. He's going to be making about $20 million this year and $20 million next year. Can you move on from him? And a guy who I thought was all but gone was Brandon Marsh, but maybe he's kept around because he's cost effective in the outfield if you bring a Juan Soto in, but kind of getting a little off track with that part of the conversation. But will it play a factor? Will you keep Alec Bohm for another couple of years, keeping that spot for Aiden Miller? Because listen, his numbers are there when it comes to the bat. You worry defensively where it's going to be. But I would rather go get a 2-3 year guy and Aiden Miller, because again, I would rather find a defensive guy who's better defensively and let them bat 8 or 9 if you're going to be upgrading in other positions like a Juan Soto. If Trey Turner can hit like he can, Alec Bohm can hit like he can. Those are the kind of things that you have to look at.
Yeah, and Steve asking an interesting question here, and I want to pass it over to Sal. The other position that's, let's call it what it is, a straight up mess for the Phillies is the outfield. I mean, you got one outfielder right now. Today they didn't tender Austin Hayes a contract, essentially making him a free agent. So way to go, Dave Dombrowski. Another stellar trade deadline move that you made there, buddy.
Do you give Dave a little credit for admitting that? Because there's plenty of times they've stuck by guys, Taijuan Walker, because they paid him, because that was their guy. Because they said it. They've been trying to get him on this team for a couple of years now. And that was a Dave guy. Do you give him a little credit for saying, all right, I've done screwed up and moved on from it?
Well, no, because you had him kind of on the cheap because he was still arbitration eligible through this season, through 25. So, no, I'm not. No,
and you didn't give up anything really for him anyway.
No, you did. You gave up Sir Anthony. I mean, yeah, he needed a change of space.
He needed to go. And you gave up Christian Pache, who was here at one.
He ended up with the Braves a week later after that too. Yeah. So, anyway, Sal, let's get back to the outfield. So the outfield's a mess. You got Nick Castellanos, and that's really it. We cannot feasibly go into the season with Castellanos in right, Rojas in center, and Brandon Marsh playing every day in left. You're just not. That's not even plausible. So let's get into the big one. Juan Soto, does it make sense in left field? And if it does make sense, do the Phillies got to move some people along down the street in order to make it make more sense? And is the price for a Juan Soto, because if we break the cap, we're going to surrender about 2 or 3 draft picks and we're going to give up about $1 million in international signing money if we go after a Juan Soto. So does Juan Soto make sense for this team in 2025?
It does make sense. I think it makes sense for a lot of teams, and that's unfortunately where you're going to have a bidding war for Soto's services. You're looking at about a $600 or $700 million contract, possibly matching Ohtani's, maybe even exceeding it. The Phillies can do it. You think about the money coming off the books next year. Think about the money coming off the books next year, or in a couple years. You got Schwarber's contract. Schwarber's a free agent after next year, I believe. You have Nick Castellanos has $40 million. That's 2 years. That'll come off. You have Taijuan Walker's contract. That's going to come off in 2 years. The Phillies can get creative. I didn't know when the Dodgers signed Ohtani and they did what they did with this, with the money and what deferring it and all that. They're paying basically $2 million a year, and they have all this money deferred for like the next 20 to 30 years to pay them off. If that's something you can do, I say the Phillies entertain it. I mean, if you have a right-handed bat like Soto in our lineup, God, could you imagine the possibilities, the lineup creations you can have? Schwarber doesn't have to be in the leadoff spot. You either have Schwarber batting in front of Soto or behind him. I mean, you got that sandwich of Harper, Soto, and Schwarber. I mean, God, the fans would be going nuts if we can get him. Now, I don't know if we can get him. It's a slim chance. The Phillies did meet with him and Boris for what it's worth, but I'm sure right now Boris and Soto are doing their due diligence and having teams buy him free dinner and stuff every night, and that's what you get wined and dined and all that. You go everywhere. I wouldn't mind Bregman here as a fallback option if we can't get Soto. I'm fine with if you sign Bregman to like a 5-year deal. Like, here's what I would like in a perfect world: you trade Bohm to like the Brewers or somebody and get a stud closer. Like you get Devin Williams for the Brewers, and then you can get Bregman at third. And if you could do that, that solidifies some things. If you don't want to do that and you don't get Soto, you can maybe try and trade for a Garrett Crochet and a I'm forgetting his name, the left fielder in Chicago, the White Sox. Get like a package.
Luis Roberts.
Right. Maybe that's something you
still
can do.
Still talking about that guy.
Bohm has
not a fan.
No, he's years left.
He's another head case, dude. He's got a lot of that Bohm ignorance in him, I guess, if you want to call it that. Just that immaturity.
Right.
And
he's
I don't
not
know
my
if
top
you
option, but
no, I mean he's young though, and I mean you could, if he does do well, you could solidify him. Barb, by the way, my name's Al. You forgot my name in the bottom there, Barb. Come on, Barb.
No, Barbara, don't change your stuff. Thank you very much for.
Come on, guys.
Barbara, she's the best.
Barb,
she's on everything.
Come on. I thought we had a thing. I thought we were friends. I don't know. But hold on. Here's my thing: is first of all, I'll answer the question. I know it's going to be coming down the line. Hell to the yes, 100% on the Juan Soto train. I want be in it. Yes, 1,000%. Choo the Juan Soto train.
No matter what the implications are for this team long term.
Well, to a point. But here's my thing: is the problem is there's a lot more than just how much he's going to cost you. But it will be telling. Because one thing is, as you said, John Heyman reported that the Phillies had a very good meeting with Soto. They said that they could come up with the finances to be in the mix, I guess. Not saying like if we give him the exact number we give him that we can do it. And he liked the culture in the locker room. He liked the team, so it was good. Yankees right now seem to be a little bit on the outside looking in. Barb, I'm done. I'm out, guys. See you later.
They don't remember. Listen, you fade away quick when you just disappear for 2 months, man. I mean,
what was it been?
2 months. It's been 2 months since you showed up on the air, man. Listen, don't blame the people.
Is it the glasses? It's me. It's Al. Look, it's me, Al. I don't know.
Al's gonna walk back into the cornfield.
Behind the curtain back there. Yeah,
exactly. Oh man, I never felt so little in my life. No, but like, there's a lot of other nuances that you have to worry about here because guess what? When was the one little conversation we had earlier this year? and it was the Bryce Harper extension. Do you think Bryce Harper is going to sit there and want to be a $23 to $24 million guy when Juan Soto probably making double that? You know what I mean? And I know you talked about the deferring situation. That ain't happening. Juan Soto is not deferring anything. But if we can get Juan Soto, and I think if Juan Soto comes here, I think it also means there's a high chance Justin Crawford is going to be our center fielder.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about that, because I do want to revisit the Juan Soto thing a little bit later on, but let's talk about center field. I think it's time also we can kind of open the curtains with that. Brandon Marsh ain't the answer. Johan Rojas is not the answer in center field going forward into this season. Now, I'm not saying he needs to be shipped on out of the organization. By the way, Godspeed, Scott Kinnery. I'm not saying that, but I think going down to AAA is what Johan Rojas needs to do in 2025 and play his season at AAA. Get his head right. And if we need him in the late part of the year for a midseason call-up or someone gets injured, fine. But we cannot go into 2025 with Johan Rojas as our starting center fielder. There's just no way.
100% agree.
And Justin Crawford, I saw a story today, is going to be a for cheap answer for this team in center field. He went from low A to double A last season. I think they're going to give him a serious look in spring training. I honestly do. And I would not be surprised, a la Dominic Brown, Justin Crawford is your starting center fielder on opening day. Al, if that's the case, how you feeling about that?
I love it. And also, don't forget, who's the new GM?
Preston Mattingly. And
Preston has been watching him, moving him up the ranks this whole season. So that does play a bit of a factor in it. So I honestly think, unless he loses it, I think it's his position to win. And it helps this team big time, because if you're trying to sign a big ticket guy like a Bregman, like a Juan Soto, you need all the young stars you got. That's what makes Rojas even more enticing to this team. Barb, those are words you're not allowed to speak or write. Barb, don't ever do that.
Speak your mind, Barbara. Don't listen to him. He's going to disappear for 2 more months after this, so don't worry about him, man.
Is this how you treat all your guests? You spit on them when they walk in the door? Jeez. I even dressed up the studio for you guys. I mean, coming out hot and firing here. No, but but seriously, it's there's a lot of different factors here. But so I honestly I would love to see Justin Crawford here. I've heard a lot about him. We've seen a lot about him. I know he's still, what was it, 2022 he was drafted? So he was just drafted of the year that the Phillies, started this whole run. So he is still young. There is there's always a worry about it, but why not? Why, if he can come into spring training and put on I'm not saying he has to come out there and bat 350, and he has to, if he can play really good defense and he can show signs of life, I'd rather give a chance to Justin Crawford, who is the future in my eyes. And you know what? Johan Rojas could be just another trading piece between now and then. Yeah, I don't even know that. I think Johan Rojas could be a trading piece. I think Mundo Sosa could be a trading piece, but you want to be careful not to give away your bench too much. There's just a lot of nuances, especially if they really are in the Juan Soto mix. The Bregman, I think, is less likely than Soto, and I'm telling you because I think they're high on Aiden Miller too. I really think they're high on Aiden Miller, and I don't think you're going to be able to sign Bregman for anything less than 5 years, but I think it's going to be closer to 7, to be honest with you. Yeah. So that means 37 years old. I mean, it's just Trey Turner all over again. And I wanted Trey Turner. I was the one saying, hey, we're getting Trey Turner. But I honestly think if Aiden Miller was a couple of years ahead of where he is right now, I think we'd be seeing him here. So...
yeah, I agree. And I think that we draft these guys at these positions for a reason. We draft them. We invest this capital in a first round pick that high for a reason. You got to get them here to play. But we're talking all this about offense. Well, let's not forget, we got some pitching issues on this team right now. And I don't know if people are looking at it the same way that I am, but I think we have a lot of question marks in our starting rotation heading into 2025. You got the 1 and 2s locked in. But after that, you got a bunch of question marks. Is Ranger Suarez going to bounce back from whatever was ailing him in 2024 in the second half? Can Christopher Sanchez replicate an outstanding 2024 season, but can he do it again? And who is your number 5 starter? So, Sal, I'm going to go over to you. I think James Paxton, get him for about $6 million. Sign him to a 1-year deal. Of course, we're going to mention Andrew Painter's name too, but you get James Paxton in here. He can pitch. He can be the 5. He can be
Paxton
the 4.
Retired, didn't he?
Did he really? I thought last time I saw he was still a UFA. But all I wanted was for 1 year.
I thought he did. I thought I saw something that said he retired.
Well, if he has, then I need somebody else. And
but I got you.
The thing is, I need somebody who can be a 5, a 4, and a 3. And we don't have that player that's ready currently right now. Yes, Andrew Painter, I do envision at some point pitching for the Phillies in 2025, but not start the season.
Yeah, no, I agree with that too. I mean, it's all hot. He's hot right now, but he's only pitching 20 innings, right? That. So it's difficult to say, but I don't know. I think they run back with Ranger. I can't see him.
Well, I'm saying, but who's the 5? Who is your 5th starter heading into 25?
Do they give Spencer Turnbull another run at it? I don't know.
Well, he's a free agent, so we can bring him back
until you're going to let him blow up a few starts.
No, I think Taiwan's going to get pushed off a bridge.
Yeah, they got to go out and find.
I think Taiwan Walker's going to get it. He's going to throw meatballs until mid-May. Yeah, it throws meatballs till mid-May, and then they're going to call up Painter to pitch for him in that 5 spot. And then the good part about the 5 spot is you don't always need it. So there are times you can skip.
So, but my concern is this: I think we're putting too much stock on Ranger Suarez either bouncing back from whatever phantom problem that he had in 24, and I think we're putting too much pressure on Christopher Sanchez to replicate what he had. I think the Phillies need to go find a stopgap, a safety net, if you will. And if it's Spencer Turnbull, so be it. But it can't be Chase Anderson or Matt Moore. It has to be somebody higher level than that. We need some help. I think Painter is an option, and I think by the time the season's over, hopefully Painter will be entrenched in the starting rotation. But I'm not happy with going into spring training with what we currently have.
Would you trade Bohm Crochet straight up?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would.
Absolutely.
I take that. What's Crochet getting paid?
I don't know. He just won comeback player of the year, so I don't know if that's. I don't know what he's getting paid.
I still believe he has like 2 years left before he becomes a free agent too.
Yeah, he's arbitration. He's still under team control.
Maybe less.
Yeah.
Maybe a year.
All right, let's now head to the bullpen, boys, because that's a serious thorn in my ass. Rob Thompson's going to probably do the same thing that he did last year and the year before that. We're going to have a bullpen by committee. We're not going to have established roles for pitchers. Hoffman and Estevez are both free agents. I say goodbye to Estevez. I say goodbye to Hoffman because I don't think I want to pay him what he thinks he's deserving to be paid. But we got problems.
Wait a minute, hold on. What did you just say? He's not getting paid?
I think Estevez should go, right? And I don't think Hoffman should go.
He's a free agent.
Hoffman's probably going to command. Yeah.
Right. I'm not prepared to pay that to Hoffman. I think he's going to want money that I'm not ready to give him. So I'm prepared to say goodbye to him too. The question is, what are we going to do with the bullpen? Because we also run the bullpen by committee. What free agents are we going to get out there? Kaylee Jansen, he's a free agent. AJ Minter is a free agent. We could bring both of them in, but they're going to want to be back-end guys. Jansen's going to want to be the closer. Are we able to commit to that? Probably not. And I think that's why Hader didn't come here last year, because the Phillies couldn't commit to him to be in the closer. And I think that is a testament to the problems with Rob Thompson and the way he manages, that he scares away some free agents, especially of the relief pitcher variety. Al, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I kind of feel like I think they're letting Jeff Hoffman hit the market to see what he's worth, to see if he can get what he's worth. But if nobody really comes back with any really contending offers, I can see him back. See, Barb knows my name; she remembers it. But like, we have a lot of there's a lot of holes in the bullpen right now. I mean, you kind of gave up a lot of guys. Was it Tanner? What was it? Tanner? What was his last name?
Banks.
I mean,
Tanner Scott.
I like. No, well, Tanner Scott. He's Padres. I would like to see him, but I think he's going to cost a lot of money. Like,
he's a free agent.
The thing is, if we're in the Juan Soto lottery, you're not going to be able to sign another big name like that. I mean, now Tanner Scott, he's a little older if I remember correct.
He's like 40.
So, no, there's Blake Trinan. We can get him for a year. It'd be worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is like you can build this up. Listen, I think we gave up. I think everybody's kind of gave up on Jeff Hoffman a little too much. But the problem is I need to know why did he fall off the cliff that he was one of those guys. It wasn't just a gradual fall. It was a plummet. It was like somebody pushed you off the edge and he fell. Like what happened in the postseason? Like we saw the bullpen kind of struggle like late July, early August, where they couldn't close a game out. But then they kind of reestablished themselves and they were dominant again. What happened? That's what I want to know.
Well, I want to give you my bullpen of 2025, and I want your opinion about it. So you ready? You ready for this? This is my bullpen with roles, and I think we're not giving that role problem its credit because I honestly believe that is the bane of the Phillies bullpen is they don't have roles, and I think that has something to do with Hoffman's fall off. Now, here we go. My long relievers. I got 3 of them. Mick Abel, Kerkering, Ruiz. My middle relievers are Banks and Strom, and Alvarado, and my setup guys Minter, and my closers Jansen. That is my 2025 wish list Phillies bullpen. You notice the name Mick Abel as one of my long relievers. The only reason why I'm putting Abel in there, I'm putting Abel in there for one reason only. Mm-hmm. If he doesn't start the season with the Phillies, it'll be a 6th year starting in the minor leagues. I need to know what Mick Abel can do in 2025 because I need to either move off of him or he needs to pitch. So, Sal, what do you think about my bullpen?
I like it. My issue is, Mick Abel was supposed to be like a number 1 prospect, a number 1 starting pitcher, and he flamed out. So this is what happens when you hold on to prospects too long, too. I'm in the camp where you trade prospects when you can. I'm not saying you empty the farm out, but if a deal comes by that's too good to pass, you don't let it go. But no, I do like it, Matty B. I would love to have like a Blake Trinan, Clay Holmes, Kirby Yates, if you can't get AJ Minter, but I think we get a couple of those guys. You got to solidify. If we're not going to get Juan Soto, if we're not going to get Bregman, if we're not going to improve on offense, then you got to solidify that bullpen and maybe make some clearly defined roles there going forward.
I kind of hope that some media members would have the cojones to ask them, like, with this change in philosophy, maybe in the winter meetings or something, is there going to be a change in the philosophy for the because pitching, listen, these especially bullpen guys, creatures of habit. Baseball Absolutely. In general, creatures of habit, but bullpen guys are 10 times worse. And I agree. I was one of the things that does frustrate me about Rob Thompson. And then the other thing that frustrates me about Rob Thompson too is the change that he did in the playoffs. Because that was kind of what I was alluding to. Where this fall off came in. Like he started doing the closing guys like Jeff Hoffman that he used in the closing position, Estevez, guy used in the closing position at times. He started off the 7th and 8th inning with those guys.
Yeah,
I didn't understand that. What happened? What happened to and then you go and re-sign our pitching coaches and re-sign the whole staff. So I did put a lot on Rob Thompson. Why was that change? What was the thought process behind that? And I think it was the thought to do that all season long. Like I don't think he just came up with this at the last minute. But I don't understand that at all, where you went from closer to 6th or 7th guy.
That's my point with these roles. As you mentioned, these pitchers are, if you're a bullpen pitcher, you need to know what your role is because you prepare that way daily. And I said at the beginning of the season that it was going to be the end of this team, and it ended up, I think, being the end. There's one last player I want to talk about, and then we're going to have to wrap it up. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Yeah, tuning in, chiming in. You're watching the Fightins Final 2024 Phillies season review show on It's a Wrap Sports here on our YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe. We're trying to grow this thing from the ground up, and we need your help. Last player I want to talk about, the BCIB, all right? JT Realmuto. We haven't mentioned much of his name this show, but he definitely deserves a little honorable mention. Not because I like him, or not because I think he's good, but he's coming off of a season where he spent the most of his season ever on the injured list. He's also entering the final year of his contract. You mentioned Kyle Schwarber being a free agent at the end of the year. So is JT. We don't have any viable catching prospects major league ready in the system because they traded freaking Logan O'Hoppe for Brandon Marsh. So I want to ask about
let it go.
JT Realmuto. Al, down to you. Do the Phillies sign JT to a contract extension? Because of my main issue is why I would support it, and the only reason is because we don't have any major league catching talent right now. Eduardo Tate, it's about 3 years away. What do you do with JT moving forward beyond this season, Al?
It's a good question. I will agree with you. We saw some flashes from what's his face? It came up when
Marchand,
Rafael Marchand. Do they?
Marchand?
I mean, that's my thing. Is like, I want to know, what do they do with that? Are they gonna run with Stubbs again? I hope not. To be honest with you, Adam. But listen, I listen. What I would like to have Logan O'Hoppe. Would I would like there to be a Logan O'Hoppe there? Sure, but we got to give it up. We moved on from him. Was it a right move or a wrong move?
I had not moved on from him.
Obviously, you're man crushing on him. You're that Wolverine meme where you have them in the picture and you're like sitting there rubbing the picture, like missing out on him. I get it, but we got to move past it. Like, there's nothing you can come out of this. But if Rafael Marchand, especially at his age, he needs to start producing. So I wonder if they bring him up. And then see what he has, and then maybe Tate becomes the number 2 guy the following year. I don't know, but yeah, it's a question. Maybe they give him a year contract extension. I mean, that's if he wants just 1 year. He might not just take that.
Sal, let me ask you a two-parter. What is your plan for JT? What do we do about him in 2025? And the second part of your question, in hindsight being the way it is, do you redo the Brandon Marsh Logan O'Hoppe trade? Major gap.
I heard, I think Party got cut off. I heard about the plan for JT, and then the second part was what now?
The second part is, would you, with hindsight being the way it is, would you redo the Brandon Marsh Logan O'Hoppe trade?
Well, yeah, hindsight being what it is now, of course I would redo that deal. Unfortunately, no takebacks. That's what the Angels are going to say, but no givebacks. But here's the deal. You got Realmuto in his final year of his deal. Now, if you can, I wouldn't be opposed to trading him either. If you can move Realmuto, I mean, if there's something else you can swing, I'd be fine with that. Now, the other thing is, I don't know that you need to give him a contract extension after this year. If you see that there's no catchers out there at free agency, or there's nobody in the farm system you can call up, you can always extend a qualifying offer. It's going to be probably around, it's $21 million right now. Next season will probably be 22.5 million. So if you wanted to extend JT that way, you could do something like that. I don't know if that's a viable option or not, but something to consider. I wouldn't want to give him a long-term deal at this point now.
And that's my point, is that with this window of winning, and it is still there, but starting in 2025, the window is going to start closing. Those 2 contracts, Realmuto and Schwarber's, are coming off the books. 26, you're looking at Castellanos' contracts coming up. So it's going to start happening in 2025 and beyond, starting now. So if the Phillies were in a position, and if they're really serious about winning a World Series, it's got to be this offseason.
Sign Schwarber, by the way, but that's just...
They got to set themselves up for success in 2025. Gentlemen, I'm going to send it around the room with your final thoughts on the Phillies 2024 season and what you expect out of them in 25. And we'll start with Al.
Thoughts were huge, giant, slap in the face letdown. That's what it was. 2024 was. I mean, again, I likened it to the 2010, 2011 scenario. This team was the hottest team in baseball for many years, for many parts of 2024. Top team in NL East for most of the season. top team in Major League Baseball for major part of the season, more probably than anybody else. But if you want to give any credence to anything, obviously Dombrowski and the office knows that they have to shake it up. Not just bringing in Juan Soto, but that they can't run it back with the same guys. That Brandon Marsh isn't going to be that guy. I mean, I'm really surprised that Alec Bowman's even in the conversation, unless somebody was offering him, a king's ransom because of how young he is, and there is upside to him. So 2025 is going to be interesting, and it's really hard to have any outlook on 2025 until maybe January when we see some moves are made. And the only moves that they made was, like I said earlier, they protected 3 guys, and Mick Abel was one of them in the Rule 5 draft. So I with 2025, I'm gonna have nothing to say about it right now because they're just this team could look completely different.
Sal, what was your final take on the 2024 Phillies? And do you have a Sal outlook for 2025? Do you have something that you would like to see the Phillies do heading into 25?
Yeah, I mean, like you guys are saying, extremely disappointed. I mean, with the way this team was going last year, I thought we're in for a magical season. I thought this could have been a year where it was just the Phillies' time to win the World Series. It wasn't. They let us down in spectacular fashion. They didn't come up big. That they played small. I mean, it's just all the adjectives, all the superlatives you want to throw out about this team. I mean, they let us down. It seemed like they just overlooked the Mets, or the Mets were just way better than the Phillies. And you got to go into this season now. You got to make considerable changes. Whit Merrifield can't be your number 1 free agent hitter that you bring over. You got to make some changes, whether that be via trade, free agency. You got to solidify that bullpen. They got to make considerable changes to the lineup. If they just shake things up a bit, maybe we got something. But if you just roll out the same crap out there, what do they say? The definition of insanity is you keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. You're not going to get a different result if you trot that same crap out there again next year. You got to do something different. Time's ticking, boys.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this is time for the Phillies to show that, listen, they went all in back on Rob Thompson. They're bringing him back. I don't necessarily think that's a great idea, but they better provide him with the best that they can, because obviously we've seen that he can't do it with the players that were there last year. He needs more players to work with, and we talked about it earlier in the show. I am actually on board with the Phillies getting off to a slow start and then turning it on in that July-August time frame, because to me, that would take care of 2 things for me. It would get Rob Thompson out of here because they'd probably fire him because we got off to a slow start, and then we would get that kick in the butt like we did in 22 to apparently get us over the hump. So that's what I'm looking at this, and I'm looking for a drastic change, folks, in 2025. And again,
change.
Yeah. And again, I want to thank everyone for tuning in here on It's a Wrap Sports Fighting's final season review show. I want to reveal one last thing, because I kept track of this all season too. Our records as hosting the Fighting's final. I mentioned at the top of the show that you're looking at 3 of the 6 people that were regulars on this show. We did all the heavy lifting. No offense to Pat, Mike, and Steve. They thank you for your contributions, but we did all the heavy lifting, and I specifically did all the heavy lifting. So let's
actually, just so you guys know, Matty B is going to need Tommy John surgery after patting himself on the back tonight. Throwing it out there.
Yeah.
Throwing it out there.
So Sal, let's reveal your record. Sal, congratulations. You finished 4 games over 500 at 24-20 for a 54.5 winning percentage. Al, you finished 4 games under 500 at 18-20 for a 47, I'm sorry, 2 games under 500 for a 47 for a 47.4% winning percentage. And I finished at 31-23, 8 games over 500, 57.4. That was not the best. Pat actually had the best. He was 13-3 for an 81.3%, but I don't buy that.
He was more in the beginning when the Phillies were red hot.
And he disappeared there at the end. So you got to have next year. We're going to put in a minimum amount of games to be qualified for this. So, but listen, guys, all serious.
That's right.
Mike,
qualified for those awards.
Yeah, Mike, Pat, and Steve, thank you for your contributions. Sal, was your first year on the Fighting's final. Thank you for the great work that you did. You're over here now, and It's a Wrap. I I'm not asking you. I'm telling you, you'll be back to the Fightins Final in 2025. Matter of fact, you need to start working on our hot stove shows that we're going to be doing this winter. So right after we get off the air, you need to get to work, seeing how Matty B is in charge of this network, and that's how I roll. But Sal, honestly, with all seriousness, man, thank you for a great year. What was your Fightins Final experience like?
It was fun, man. It was a great time. This is my first time ever doing broadcasting, podcasting, what have you. So it was fun, man. The ups and downs of the Philly season. I thought we were going to be in for a treat, but I had a great time, man. So I appreciate it. So thanks a lot, brother.
I mean, do we give any credence to the guy who pulled him up into the ranks? I mean, any credence to the guy who was able to pick him out of the talent pool? Maybe the Phillies should hire me. If I have the eyeball for talent.
I believe the conversation we had about Sal in the Fightins Final was a mutual one. I think I mentioned, I mentioned him. I saw him on your show one time, and I said, "What about this guy?" And you said, "Oh no, he ain't gonna work out." I'm like, "Well, listen, we'll give him a shot. Maybe he will." And
damn.
No, that's right, Sal. It was Al who brought you to my attention, and Phillies it was obviously the right move. And Al, what can I say? 3 years now. You've been with the final since the very beginning. I know you're probably not prepared to make any kind of commitments to 2025, but I really hope that you consider it. You're more than welcome here for the 25 and beyond seasons of the Fightins Final. So thank you for your help again this season.
I will say this. Stay tuned.
Okay. There you go. So there you go, Al. So Barbara, I don't know if you know this, but there's a curtain behind Al. So he's probably going to get up symbolically and walk behind the curtain here in about 5 seconds. See, look at that. There you go. Into the cornfield.
Look at this.
But and as far as I am concerned,
Dad, can we have a catch?
Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, this is the 3rd year of doing the show. It gets bigger and better and better every season. And I want to thank everybody, all the people out there that made the Fightins Final to what it was. And yes, we have a new home here on It's a Wrap, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean it's not going to be the same show. And moving forward, we're going to make it bigger and better. As I said, Sal's committed. I'm not asking him. I'm telling him he's committed for the 2025 season. And we're going to go forward together. But there will be some other changes to the show. I promise you that. We'll get it better. Down on the Phillies farm will be back next season. I'm not doing it alone, Sal, so you better get revved up on the minor league system because you're going to start doing some of that. And we're going to make it bigger and better. So thank you, guys.
All right.
Let's do it. And before I say goodbye, where can the people find you, Al?
Right there, Big Al EOP on X. You'll be seeing a little bit more of that. I haven't been on there a lot, like Maddie said in the beginning of the show. I've kind of been in witness protection. Now I've been moving, dealing with a lot of stuff in life. So I haven't been, watching as much as I would like to, or tweeting out and retweeting, but you will see me on there. You will see me out there a little bit more. So follow me on X right now. Doing my thing, putting my opinion out there if you actually even care.
Sal, where can they find you?
Find me at Sal G Philly on X or Twitter, whatever it is, and you'll find me here on It's a Wrap. I'm doing the Clear the Ice. I'll be doing Fightins Final, and I got my own show every Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, The Wraparound on It's a Wrap Network. Took me a while to come up with that name.
Yeah. About as long as it took me to come up with the name of the network.
It could have been worse. You could have went with the Reach Around.
No, those shows are gone from this network.
Thought about it.
And of course, me, you can find me here on It's a Wrap Sports. Every night I do a show called The Final Word. Also, Clear the Ice and other things that we're going to start doing here in the future.
Let me just say this too. By the way, as a guy who's been watching from the outside looking in, very, very impressed with you guys doing this as quickly and putting it together after how things, for those who ran EOP still around. Don't get me wrong, but major changes I had to change in my life. I put it out there. I'll put it out there one more time, and you and everybody else, really, you guys just, grab the bull by the horns and wrestled it down the ground. So congratulations, you guys. You guys are doing a great job already. And I look forward to guesting on these shows occasionally here and there.
Absolutely. As I said, you're more than welcome, Al, anytime you want. And if you want to expand your role, you can just, we can talk about that too. So But all right, that's going to wrap us up, folks. Make sure you're checking us out tomorrow because we'll be back for Clear the Ice. I got the call against the Blackhawks post game. But as I said, I got some things going on in the afternoon. I got hockey games to do, and then I got a family gathering. So Clear the Ice will be seen around 7, 8 o'clock tomorrow evening. So make sure you're here for it. Until then, you guys have a great rest of your night and a better tomorrow. We'll talk next time.
I've been coming up hot for a minute. Everybody know the drop when I'm in it. Drop the top when I'm in it. Everybody know the drop when I'm in it. Yeah, I go so yo. Everybody know you know when they click through. Try to send this possibility, so be fine.